Hello, welcome to the Low Code Campfire. This is episode number 213 for September 26th of 2025. I am Dale Warner, head of support, and today the main topic is search follow-up episode. We'll talk about the search functionality that we added in Low Code Café this week, but beyond that, we'll talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. Are some topics that were done in advance, so we'll have some things to talk about. This is a presentation that Plant and App puts on week by week. That is a community gathering, and it's an opportunity to share the challenges and techniques and experiences that you're having with our product. So we hope that you'll bring something to show, maybe some good techniques. If you need ideas or help with a project, well, we'll get into that as well. We record all these, put them on YouTube at youtube.com/plantandapp. So do sign up to get notified when we post new episodes. We do this agenda week by week. We stop and say hello because we're a friendly group, and then we go around the campfire. Anything that you want to talk about first, anything that was submitted in advance. We'll talk about contributions to our campfire website, the stack of techniques that you can implement in your projects. We'll touch on almost all these today. So with that, I just encourage you to jump in and engage with us. You can submit anything in advance. If you do a topic in advance, I will do a little bit of research and then we'll put it on the agenda and we'll make sure to talk about it. So that's support@plantandapp.com. With that, hello all, one and all.
Hey there, Dale.
Hello, Dale, everybody.
Good morning, team.
Welcome, welcome. Did somebody come with a first call?
I got a shout out. Thanks very much, Dale. The other day, I had a list and I wanted to select a few items on the list and was not sure what the mechanism was for that. And so I put in a ticket and Dale got right back to me with how to do it. And then not only how to add the checkboxes, but then how to change the built-in export that you get with a grid. So thanks very much for that. I wasn't sure. And I also, in thanking you, I wanted to ask, is that documented somewhere so that A, whoever else might have that and is watching the video would see where that is, and B, I could get better at looking things up rather than asking.
Sure. So, a very valid point. I just recently realized that though that's still an undocumented feature, at least in terms of our newer documentation. So, I have entered a ticket within our development cycle to make that change. There's one more piece of that I'm still trying to find an answer about. So. Uh, let's just say that will be present in the inline documentation in the future. But I do think it's worth talking about. This is the one that I put together to test it out for you. And so, for example, you have the ability to check items on a list. It doesn't really matter what the list is. And then we have this export button, and the export button is just going to include the two things that we did. And this is really quite easy functionality, but the problem, of course, is that you need to know where it is. Hanging on, there it is. So we have these two items that came up, the two that I selected, and so um, it works. So now what's behind the scenes? Well, I have my listing here, and it has a couple of pieces. Um, First of all, we have a button. The export button is a root button that if you enable selection, that turns on all the checkboxes so that you can pick items. And then in the export, um, the the magic word that I gave to you, this list name, action grid entry colon selected, this is a an automatically built list that that has all the data from all the selected items. So you can do anything with this list. And in our case, we're doing a create Excel from list, and so it's just taking all the data and um, putting it into the Excel, and then since we're putting that in we're getting the absolute URL out of it, we can redirect to the URL and get it to download. So it's really simple functionality, but you got to know the missing link. There's a couple of these. There's three different ones, and I've got two of them uh, that I've defined, and I've got another one that I'm still tracking down. But when I do, I'll get them in. The My intention would be that uh, in the actions for this button, that the inline help will mention the action grid entry selected. The other one I think is action grid entry, which is everything, and we'll document exactly what those are so that you can use them, and it'll be here in the help text. That's my plan.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Um, so yeah, that's a cool technique. And then um, there's another one which we've talked about before, and that is in listings. I think in the export, the absence of a name here also means um, the current exporting the current item, so the current grid data source. So we have a couple of undocumented and magic things that make things easier for you, and so we'll try and get them documented. Great question,
Yeah.
though.
When you build an entity and then the pages are built for you, that export is built in and you get that at the bottom of the grid.
Right?
And that list name in that field was blank. And so no matter, when I first did the first half of it, which was get the checkboxes to show, I clicked the checkboxes and hadn't put in the action grid entry colon selected thing yet. So I was kept on getting all of the entries rather than just the ones that I had selected. But so that, yeah, you're right. The when it's blank, you get it all.
So the nice thing about, or another nice thing about this list here, when you're working in the buttons for when you're defining a button, if just a reminder, there are these per item actions. So if you want to do something on all the things that are selected, um, each time that each action that you put here is processed against each selected item in the list. But if you want to do something in addition to that, this list, action grid entry colon selected, could also be used, for example, if you want to run through and get a total before you start doing the per action items. I mean, you can use this list for anything. It's got access to all of the data of the grid.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah. So great question, and you're absolutely welcome for that. Anyone else? Someone else? Good to see you all. We're gaining momentum as we go. All right. I had several things, and so maybe this will spur the discussion, but I was doing some work this week, and actually, I think it's probably worth mentioning. I uh, was going through all of our core tokens and building examples of using every one of them that I could, and doing it in such a way that we're just proving that it all works the way it's supposed to, right? Because we have our tokens, and assuming that so like right now I've got about 130 tests of all the different tokens defined, and the result of which is a whole big pass or fail kind of a mechanism. Um, and then when we apply that to either after hotfixes get applied to a system or in our next version, we want to make sure that everything remains exactly the same. So yeah, that's kind of the background of this. I was building a whole bunch of testing of tokens for reliability purposes. And I came on to SessionOrInit, which I think I'd always known was there, but I just never did anything, never really thought about the impact of this one. So first, I guess I'll start with anybody using SessionOrInit.
No, I'm not.
Nor am I.
I have at least one client that's relying quite heavily on session, and I think we've talked about it before. The problem with session is that from time to time it goes away after 20 minutes of idle or whatever the definition is in IIS for your system. You can have a session variable that had a value, and the next time that somebody accesses the site, it has no value, and uh, so if you're counting on it to have a value, now you have to test for it and maybe make the decision to route somewhere where it goes and repopulates a
Dale,
value.
Jared here. I'm literally programming around that right now, so I'm all ears and excited to hear what you've got to say. I use sessions often, and I have to put those little checks in that, okay, if your session has expired, basically start all over again. So I'll hush. Teach us, please.
Okay. Okay, so this is for Jerry and another client. So it's I guess we can start with looking at it in tokens. It's really, really simple, but I put together an illustration. So in tokens, core tokens, there's these different ones. So SessionOrInit says that you're going to get the key, whatever that session key is, and if it doesn't exist yet, here's where it gets its initial value. So you can just use this, and if you can programmatically provide some way of getting its initial value, then the first time you hit this thing, it's going to give you the session. The second time, I'm sorry, the first time you hit it, it's going to do this init value functionality, and whatever that is, however complex or easy that is, now it's going to have a value. And then from that point forward, you hit the session again, you use the same functionality, and you're going to get the first value until session expires. And then init will run. And so let me walk you through what I did. On the presumption that the initialization of this is pretty involved, I did a workflow. So I created a workflow that is generating a unique key. This could be a call to a different server or whatever it is. But in my case, I just wanted to give it a user ID, and it generates an output called new key, which is so I just want a unique key that's going to last for as long as my session lasts. And so it's just giving me that with a GUID on the end of it. And if I do it again, I get a new one. So that's my functionality. In tokens, I've created my user key token that um, that runs that workflow. So now every time I send it, I run this token, I get a new value. So this is what I'm going to use to initialize my session, right? It doesn't really matter what I'm doing here. It's just you need some way to initialize it, and this is the way I've chosen to do it. So now back to my illustration. Every time I click this button, it runs that function I just showed you and gets a new key. When I do this button, it's using the SessionOrInit, and I'll show you all the syntax in a minute, but it's running SessionOrInit, so it goes and gets one, but when I click it again, it's doing that same functionality, but now notice that it stays static. So long as the session lasts, you're getting the same value over and over again. And then if I clear it out, I'll get a different one, and then it stays static again. So let's look at the code. So all this is very simple. So the get a user key button is just passing my user ID into my magic function that's giving me a key. So every time you do it, you get a different one. The get a session user key button is doing that same functionality, but put inside the init value of this SessionOrInit. So I am saying SessionOrInit, and I'm giving it a name called my user key. It doesn't matter what I call it, but it's getting my user key. And if it doesn't have a value, it's using this initialization, and it all goes to the user key. So, did I leave you with more questions, or does that make sense, Jerry?
I understand exactly what you did. I'm trying to understand how your system would be different or better than the classic set session, my user key, some value, and then you're referencing the session colon my user key throughout your code elsewhere. Uh, is yours doing something that prevents it, makes the session last longer, or
Okay,
how do?
so the difference is if you use set session to
Mhm.
initialize the value, then you can use the session token to retrieve that value anytime you want. But
Agreed.
if the session expires, then session is going to be empty, and now you're not getting the value that you expect. You're not getting a good value, and that's the thing you have to test for. Is my session empty? Okay, now I got to route to this other page that does, or logic or whatever that generates it.
Understood. And so
So
if your session times out, then you just simply get a new key, if you will, and you proceed on.
right. So under the set session functionality, you have to test to determine, do I still have a good session? Right? You can
Yeah.
lose session at virtually any time, so you've got to test for it. If you use this functionality, it says, I'm going to get my key. Oh, if it doesn't exist, I'm going to create it using my logic. So you don't have to go somewhere else or test for it. You're pointing to your logic all the time. So as long as you don't need to do something else when uh, let's just say simply, so if you fit that pattern that you can get the init value at any time, just that it's empty, this lets you do that. And so now, instead of just referring simply to session my user key, you do this anywhere you need to use it, um, and it will initialize.
In my particular case, I'm not sure that this helps me, but I'm really excited to see what this does. But I have a shopping cart that once that cart gets initialized, it has an ID exactly like you're talking about, a good ID. And that ID needs to stay with that shopping cart throughout the user's experience, if we call it
Yes.
that. And if they walk away to leave for a while and in the middle of their order and they come back and that session has expired, creating a new session ID would still require me to do some type of back-end programming to update that cart with the new ID versus the old ID. And
Yes.
so you can kind of see my pain And
So
so what I
yeah,
do is before key things happen, I test just to make sure that session is alive.
right. So this isn't going to solve all use cases. I agree. This wouldn't solve the one, at least at the surface, it's not going to solve the one you're talking about.
Understood.
All,
But
uh,
but this is very cool and very good information. Thank you for schooling us on this.
although, if the logic in your init value was to go get um, the cart for the most recent cart for this user is assumed to be the correct cart, you could go get it. Right? If it's there in the data someplace, you could probably divine it.
And therein lies the issue with me. This particular cart is running on an enrollment process prior to the user even existing. And that's why we have this specific ID
Mm.
created to track it through its process. And we're hoping that by the end of the shopping process, they are a valid user of the DNN website. And we have access to all those luxuries from that point forward. But this is one of those shopping carts that's kind of out into the front end of things. And it's the
Hmm.
chicken and the egg or the cart before the horse analogies start popping up everywhere. But I have it running great. Everything's under control. And this is also where we left off last week when we were talking about having many forms and grids on the same page and things loading ahead of other things. I'm initializing my cart before that page gets established. And of course, now all that's working fine. That's a different topic if anybody wants to bring that back up. But set session on init or the which is the one, Dale, the get or session or get one
Yes.
where it pulls from the grid. That's a blessing to me too. I love that one too. So
Yep.
someday bring that back up and give a few lessons on it.
In the so I mentioned another client not present today. Um, their use case is that they do some uh, uh, they have a user ID already, and they need to do a remote query to a different system. And in terms of time, that's quite expensive. So they do the remote query, they wait for the result, and now that's what gets in session. And now session is very fast for them through the rest of the time because they have the information they need. In the event that session expires, they need to go through that expensive process again, but they have everything that they need to do that. And so SessionOrInit in their case would keep them from having to route to a common logic spot and just um, consume it wherever they want to. And when it expires, it gets reinitialized and it's all good. So it's all doable. It's whatever. Anyway, it's a use case, and I wanted to mention it.
Can I
But I
say
will move
something
on.
on that?
Please.
Um, just curious, Jerry, would it, I mean, from what I'm understanding, you're saying that you create a cart, you're using a generated ID that you put into session, person session expires, so then that ID doesn't really exist anymore, in which case they lose their cart. You're trying to set up a situation where their cart remains. Wouldn't you potentially be able to use the device fingerprint field in your form when they first create the cart, use that fingerprint, and instead of saving it in sessions, save it in your database. And then every time they come back, re-look up their device fingerprint and then just pull out that cart. So even if their session dies, if they come back on the same exact device, you'll still find their cart.
Point taken, Ben. In fact, I questioned cookies versus sessions when I started that process, thinking down the same track that you're going. And I think your idea is probably even better than mine in the essence, but our client there's a sense of urgency on the enrollment, meaning they really don't want the cart to hang around forever, and they want to encourage people to. It's a sign up process, if you will, and they must purchase a product to do this project, and we kind of want them to get in and get through the process and not have it be hanging around forever. And but when that discussion came up, I thought maybe writing it to a cookie instead of to a session would solve that issue. And then once upon that shopping experience being completed, I would just clear that cookie. Um, the device fingerprint, I don't know anything about. I've not studied that or partaked in that before, and I most certainly will. I'm not having any issues, Ben, other than um, guy fills his cart full of stuff and decides he's going to leave for a while. He takes a phone call, comes back, and we've all been there. And his cart has now expired. So if he moves on or moves around or tries to add another product or tries to check out whatever, I have to throw a pop-up window saying, "I'm sorry, your session timed out," and it didn't. So I'm uh, I'm
So
definitely willing to listen to what you got to say to make that better
I mean,
experience for him.
I mean, I agree that to me, especially on a user experience, would be really frustrating. I I would tend to then move my data to the database as opposed to any type of cookie or session that expires. And then I would just have something that say every 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever you set up as an automation, to just go in and say when that record, that shopping cart's created on date exceeds a certain amount of time, just delete it. I've seen and I've done situations too where it's kind of a dual check. So I would have, let's say, an automation that checks for, let's say, 20 minutes to half an hour. If that cart is still open, I would then, if I have the information at the time, email the person and say, hey, by the way, I still see that you have, a cart that you haven't completed. Why don't you come back and finish up? And then I would give them a link that would bring them back to the correct page. And then let's say half an hour after that, if they still haven't done anything, then just delete it because at that point
Sure
it's been
thing.
sitting around for an hour.
In fact, Ben, I'm way ahead of you on that in the fact that I am set for that. All of my data lives in the database. It's all there for the kill. The only thing that's session is this GUID that points to the records in the database. And so when it expires, the database record still exists. So it's not like I'm storing every single thing about that cart in the memory. In fact, it's just the ID to the cart that times out. So it would be very easy to convert to your process for me right now. Just
Yeah, so you wind
super
up with
simple.
basically orphaned records,
I do,
an orphan
and
cart.
those orphan records are exactly as you said. They would be removed after X number of minutes, days, hours, weeks, months, whatever we decide.
Hey,
so
Jerry, just
Yes, sir.
so um, I have had the almost the exact same problem as you have with regard to session variables and are they timing out? Not with a shopping cart, but that's kind of irrelevant in this case. I
Mhm.
did go down the path of writing a GUID to the browser cookie. And the first thing that I do is I test that I reload the session variables based on the browser cookie. And if the cookie doesn't exist, then I essentially do a redirect to send them back to square one.
Yeah.
Obviously, that may not be
Sure.
the right thing to do in your case, but in my case, it certainly does do the job and it keeps everything alive. And then, yeah, it just keeps everything alive. And then I don't wind up with a situation where they've got fields on the screen where they're expecting values, but the session timed out and it has no value in it. So this addresses that quite nicely. So
Yes. Understood. Thank you for your input, Matthew. In my particular case, I'm golden. I'm still considering Ben's thoughts on creating a cookie instead of a session for that ID because it might persist longer. I think at the end of the day, that's all any of us are talking about is trying to keep a dumb variable persistent for the experience. So
exactly.
yeah.
so kind of to tack on to Ben's comment, device fingerprint can be useful too if you want to let them move between if they for some reason are changing browsers and they're but same device, you can kind of capture that. So, but I don't think that's your scenario. And the other thing I just wanted to point out is that I think this cookie is guaranteed to exist. Uh, just by virtue of browsing to a site, I think it's the first thing that happens when you go to a DNN site. So you could base it. You don't even have to set a cookie if you're. Um, uh, I mean, although you don't have to set a cookie if you just want to follow that one browser or for however long. And then last thought is that if you do create a cookie, there's examples on Campfire of being able to set it for a duration that you want. So if you want it to last for a very long time, that's possible too. Yeah, and then who's posting lots of good stuff in the chat? Ah, Mark. Mark is getting into it. All right, against fingerprinting. All right. So, good topic.
I'm interested in the fingerprinting stuff, but more in storing a number of them. I mean, if somebody comes in and logs in, I would want to capture their fingerprint. But then if they log in later on, like if they go from their desktop and now they're on their phone, that I'd like to know that it's them. And so if once that's established, I would imagine there's a few, I don't know how many, but a few of different fingerprints to link with the same person. And so yeah, I would want to make sure I did that. But now you're just making the interface more and more complicated, I guess.
We certainly see examples of that happening. Amazon is really great at following you around, right? So, and Google and the advertiser. So there's certainly use cases for it, but again, I don't know, Mark, if you want to talk about what you've got here, or just we can look at it in the chat. But there's
Sure.
arguments against.
The summary is I looked into it, and doing fingerprinting is becoming unreliable and actively thwarted by browsers. So it's going to become less and less valuable.
Good. Thanks for the summary. All right. There are some other stuff that I think is useful to get to today. I'm going to jump back to this one because there was something else I wanted to. Uh, this is a good one. So I wanted to mention this because we did a Low Code Cafe. We did. I wanted to offer the opportunity to anybody that was there and wants to follow up with any questions. But in terms of contributions, real quickly, last week I mentioned we have this scroll to top thing, and so it's been in there for a while, but now I documented it, so there's a nice the script and all is there. This is if you go to the bottom and you click, and it's when it goes to the next, it scrolls to the back to the top. So just kind of a nice simple thing you can do if you want to. And then in Low Code Cafe, we did this thing that had fuzzy search. It's a search form that that you can search by name, for example, and we see we're seeing fuzzy search work. If you, we discussed implementing something that was together with the last four of their social or some kind of a pin, and so you can search and get to a specific record. This is taking advantage of a search boost index, so no matter how huge your database gets, you're still going to get some instantaneous results. And so anyway, anybody see that? Anybody have any questions from what they saw?
Dale, I saw it and I thought it was excellent. And I'm thinking about different cases where I might like to implement it. So one of the things that I've experienced with large, data sets is just like you said in the search in a list, that is a SQL-based search and it takes quite a while. So having this capability really, I think may make a lot of sense. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Since the, I mean, we did one in 45 minutes, right? So it is an extra effort over just putting up a listing and letting SQL do the work. But if your data is huge, being able to, spend an hour or two to put a search form in front of it that gives great results very quickly, it, might be worth the investment, right? So anyway, it's out here so that you can get to the episode, you can understand what we did, you can play with it a little bit. But between fuzzy search and this one also put in wildcard search as a so both of those are turned on, so you can use the asterisk for a wildcard as well as so there's different ways of searching, and I think it's useful. So it's out here. So that's Campfire contributions. There was one that I really wanted to get to. Oh, I wanted to mention that we actually took care of a feature request. So that whole redirect to portal page, that list being so crazy ugly and useless has now been fixed. So when now redirect to portal page, you have this kind of it exactly mirrors your menu structure of your site, so easier to find the page that you're after. So that got done, and so that's coming up in a version of either late.
Have a search box?
No, we did not add a search box.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right, now backing up. I know I'm jumping around today. There was something I was supposed to put on the agenda and did not, so I'm gonna grab it now. Did any of you use the navigate URL core token? So
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
I sure have.
So it's this one. You say navigate URL and a tab ID, and I see if I can find an example of a tab ID here. If I look at pages and look at my home page, the tab ID is 21. So if I say navigate URL, the one, it gives you the URL to get to that thing. We are trying to figure out what to do with this. And then there's this other variant where you can give it a path to the tab and it turns it into a URL. In recent years, I've taken to using the URL core token, which has given me the functionality that I need to figure out how to build links. But anyway, the question is, or the issue is that navigate URL, both of these formats don't really fit our normal our normal token format, right? That putting a number here is, if we were doing this today, if we were designing this today, it would be something like navigate URL colon something with an input in parentheses. This is just kind of out of band for what we do with the way we do tokens now. And we've rewritten the token engine in version 128. This doesn't work out of the box. We're trying to figure out whether there would be an uprising if we converted to a more standard token syntax, realizing that it would be a breaking change at 128.
I personally use the URL tokens more than this one. This is probably very rare for me.
I use the tab token. I've never used the navigate URL one.
Now, Jerry, you mentioned that you have used it. Are you?
I have, and I'm scanning through some code now to see how significant. And I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world for me. Just as long as I get a heads up on it, then I'll do the research then. But
Yeah.
no, I'm good.
So my feedback, as I think about this, the fact that navigate URL is such a unique keyword that we would be able to do a search. We've talked about the global search in the past, that functionality, or other ways, but you'd be able to search and find them. It wouldn't again, it wouldn't. I think it qualifies what you said. You'd be able to find them. It wouldn't be the end of the world in most cases. It'd just be an effort that would have to be applied. Okay, well, I'm not hearing an uprising. There were several good ones on Community Portal that, yeah, this was another dark corners thing for me. I don't know how many of you are following along, but Mason was talking about using some regex kind of actions, and it turns out he was using the regex replace action, and I've never paid attention. I've tried to use this action. We have a regex token. Let's see if I can. I lost my. So while I'm looking around, anybody use regex replace action?
Yes.
No, I don't.
I do not.
So here I have an example of it. The action looks like this. So you say where you're going to store it, what's the input to it, what's the pattern that you want it to replace, and what are you replacing it with. So this is the first time I've ever used it. I played with it a little bit. It turns out this is not tokenizable. So you're doing it with a constant. The pattern you can turn on as a token. It appears to be connected to this checkbox. So you can get a result like this. I'm passing in text 1 with a pattern of text 2 and the value of and storing it back to result 1. So in my case, if I click this button, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. So it's doing a replace of that based on that. So the question that Mason was coming to was this parameter here, it has to be it's not tokenizable, and of course it strips, it won't let you store with spaces around it. So he wasn't able to get the impact that he was after because he wanted it space and space in this replacement. So to mention, there's this other action that, or not action, there's the core token regex replace, which you can do the same thing. So you're still inputting text 1, you're matching against text 2, and in my case, I'm doing a replacement that is it breaks here awkwardly, but it's space and space. I'm passing in this static text. And so this button then gives him the result that he's after. So for my money, regex replace is kind of limited and specialized. I suspect that was that you can get the same place using a regex replace string token. Any comments?
It's been a long time since I used that, and I don't remember what I did, but I did have that similar problem. So with the with spaces in there, there's an XML form. Typically, your XML is matching tags, and there's an XML form with where it sends, if there's no value, it sends a slash null or something. I forget what the exact syntax is, but at any rate, I just use the regex to just get rid of the field, because if there's nothing there, I'm not going to change it anyway. So it's kind of a cheat, as opposed to finding an XML processor that handled that. But there was a space issue along the way somewhere. I forget how I handled it, but I did. But this is much better. I like that, and now I know that I can put whatever I want, including spaces, using this rather than using the action.
So two mentions. One is that I have been, like JavaScript, I don't know how to generate regex expressions, but the AIs are very good at that. So I've gotten a long way out um, of getting what I want to accomplish based by explaining here's what I've got, here's what I want, how can I get there, and getting it to generate match expressions for me. And the other thing that I'll mention is that I used this probably more this week than I have in my life, this regex replace, because that thing I was talking about, generating token tester, the output of that is I want to make sure, like if you're testing date tokens, you want dates to be returned in a particular format. You want to make sure the format is good, but every time you use a date token, the answer is different. So my token tester is saying, let's run this date thing. And now I'm using regex replace to say, did it in fact match the format that I was expecting? And if it does, it returns pass, and if it doesn't, it returns anything else. And so I'm able to test that that I'm getting what I want. So anyway, regex replace is a neat functionality.
I notice in your syntax there, the text2 parameter has got single quotes around it as opposed to doubles. Is that accurate?
It does work. You can mix and match these. The You don't have to stick with quotes. So um, this you can double quote some things and single quote other things and still get the same result. So I could do this, and it should work just the same way. It's It's flexible. Is that
Okay.
your question?
It is. No, it's just I've often make the mistake going back and forth, and I get into the wrong syntax, and suddenly things start to blow up on me.
Yep. Yep. All right, so that was that one. What else?
A quick question on something I asked last week, and I was wondering if
Yes.
anybody else has had the experience, and that is the critical update. As you could see on your screen right now, under DNN, it says update, and it says that you need to go to
Yep.
10.1.1. But we can't if we're Planet App users. So, did you guys look at it, and are you has it been addressed? I just got an email or a couple of days ago, maybe everybody got an email. EasyDNN is, keeps on selling EasyDNN, and their last one kind of was the sky is falling kind of stuff. So update your DNN and then use my latest EasyDNN. Just hope it's not that serious. I don't know what the actual thing is, and I don't think it's good to bring it up now because if any hackers want to watch our video, we don't want to tell them how to do it, but apparently there's a problem. So, want to know how to solve it, and if anyone else is having the same question as to the severity of it.
So, a quick summary of what we're doing. We're testing DNN 10, whatever, probably this 10.1.1 against our version 1.28. There are substantial changes that are required to plant an app in order to make it work with DNN 10. So it's not something that we plan to address as like a hot fix. It will be done in 128, and we are actively working to close 128 because of this. The other, but it's still, you know, weeks away until it will be available. So we don't have a fast answer for you. Our team also pointed out, and I don't mean to minimize. I have only looked into the actual details of this issue to a moderate to just a neophyte amount. So I know that's a real issue. I don't mean to discount it. But our team has pointed out that in prior versions of DNN, this mechanism showing that there was a latest version critical update, in some of those versions it didn't work. And so there have been other issues in the past that were critical updates, and yet people weren't quite as alarmed just because they weren't seeing the message, right? So
Ah,
uh, this is kind of an ongoing thing, as what is my understanding, that we'll come to 10 version 10, and somebody will find something else, and there'll be another latest and critical. So this is something that we'll have to deal with forever. But
got it.
our
I
official
haven't seen anything on the DNN side. I know there was a request to fix 9.13, 7, 8, 9, wherever we're at, with whatever the fix is, so that anyone who's at the 9.13 level can stay there and still use Planet App. I know you guys go up to 9.13.7. Um, I don't really know what changes are in 8 and 9 that would cause a problem. I doubt if there is any. So I'd
I,
probably go to 7 to 9 and then
I
fix it
would
that
say
way.
that if it were addressed in a 9 dot release, we would certainly test and try to be compatible with that. So
Yeah, okay, good.
it probably would work. Probably would not interfere with Plant and App and cause any conflict. And I would certainly do the testing on that.
Right. Okay, cool.
So if you happen to find out that they did indeed address it in a patch, I'd love it if you bring it to my attention. I'll take care of that. But
Will do.
um, so there was this one here, wondering how to use this new Row CSS Classes functionality that we put in. and we've covered this on different low-code campfires, but he was just trying to understand how to do it when you had three different status fields and any one of them could impact, want to highlight the entire row. And you can put multiple, the answer is, and I tested this out, you can put multiple classes on and then color them and they kind of overlap. So if any one of them results in a status that needs to be highlighted, that you could define that you could get the entire row highlighted. So there's lots of ways to do it, but it's just interesting to see that the functionality that we built in doing that can be used in lots of different ways. So.
That's pretty cool, Dale.
Yeah, agreed. I want to look into that.
I have the example if you want me to play it now.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing.
At least I think I do. Let's take a look. So in our data table views, I have I've added two classes, status A and status B. And this is just a proof of concept, so I didn't actually tie it to two different status fields. Although if you had a status field, you could you would typically do this out of a row in the pull some value out of the row to do it. But I just put two different classes, status A, status B, on here, and then if we inspect it, and let's get this where it's docked. Make some room here. So if you find those statuses get added to the row, status A, status B, and so you could define something like dot status A color red. And so if it had the status A, it could be red, and you could add another one that is dot status B is color red. So if either one of those things were true, you would get the coloring. You'd have a little bit of conflict to manage, like in this case. If all you want to do is to highlight it, to put the background in yellow, then any of the statuses could result in highlighting it. You can see that you have multiples there, and you might have to deal with some level of importance if you had conflicting flags. But if the use case was, let's just highlight it, if it's any of these things, you could do it through multiple classes.
I'm sorry, Dale, I'm missing. Where is the conditional part of this?
Well, okay. Let's make one that's let's do n events. Let's modify our stuff a little bit so we could do status 1, and I have a field here in events. So I didn't actually, it was a proof of concept. So let's, and we'll add that as the.
Okay, as soon as you put brackets in there, I get it.
Okay, well, so we'll finish it out here anyway. So now if we highlight, let's go find something here. So status B with a value of 44, and we could add another one, a different. So if you're looking for status B of 44, or status B of good or bad or whatever, again, you can. I think I got close with my CSS here. Whoops. Sorry, that's the wrong one. I think my CSS was somewhat close. The idea was you could do the first field that you're doing status, you could say if it's good, it's green, and if it's bad, it's red. And if status 2 is an early or late kind of an indication, then status 2 of early gets green and status 2 gets red. And so you could have different statuses with different values and still color the whole thing based on color the whole row based on 2 different tests in CSS. But again, you might be dealing with some priority stuff. You're probably going to want to make sure that if you're only trying to make the whole thing red, then it's easy. If you're trying to go, is it green one way and red the other, you might have some CSS work to do to make that happen.
Very good.
I wanted to shout out for a second here just to say that I think this is a really great example of the process of this call and the community we have, is that the fact that this is in the product comes from this call. And I think that's pretty cool. It's been a long time, but it's happened. So anyway, just wanted to state that.
And it's good power. It's a good powerful feature without and not hard to take advantage of. It's just yeah.
Yep.
Now, this is very good, Dale. I'm often asked, can I change the color of a row based on a condition? And just some people like to see green when it's good, and yellow when it's close, and red when it's not. And it sounds like to me this would not be a real hard thing to do, just knowing how to control those classes and putting in the trigger mechanism.
Exactly.
Seems like a good video, Dale. Like you have any extra time to do that. I hear you.
Well, okay, I'll take that challenge. I thought we might have examples of it, but if we don't, that can be my next contribution on the website. What's you're still running on credit from doing mapping, so I appreciate that one.
I would have thought we would have amortized that out by now, Dale, but okay, I'll take it.
All right. All right, thanks for spending your hour with us. I'm going to turn off the recording. If you have a minute, we'll go into our Afterglow segment and hang out for a few more minutes. Thanks, everyone.